Watch this closely, because something happened after Indiana's win that nobody in that building should just brush off. The Fever's own assistant coaches shut down Sophie Cunningham's celebration on her home court, in front of her own fans, right after she helped them win. This isn't some throwaway sideline moment. This is a symptom of a league that keeps tripping over itself. Cunningham had just helped the Fever beat the Mercury. All she wanted was her signature move, that point to the crowd, her celebration, her identity out there on the floor. Instead, the Fever's assistant coaches grabbed her arm and pushed it down. Caught on camera, right after a win. I'm Ryman, and today we're digging into Indiana's culture problem, breaking down how ESPN's Women's Sports Sunday ratings just fell off a cliff, and asking the one question nobody running this league wants to answer. What happens to these numbers when Caitlin Clark isn't even on the floor? Here's the truth. This isn't one issue, it's two disasters happening at the same time, and they're tied together. One is playing out on the sideline. The other is playing out in the ratings. And the same problem is driving both. An old-school instinct to control, suppress, and choke out anything that looks like real joy or real star power before it can grow. Let's be clear about something. Sophie Cunningham didn't do anything wrong here. She's the one who got wronged. She's a professional athlete who just won a game and wanted to give the fans in that arena, the ones who paid to be there, a moment. Her signature, her identity on the court, and her own coaching staff decided that moment needed to be managed, controlled, shut down, in public, on camera, right after a win. Think about what that teaches everyone watching. Not just Cunningham. Every player in that locker room. Every fan in those seats. Every young girl who tuned in and watched a woman get physically pulled back from her own moment of joy by the very people who are supposed to have her back. That's not a small thing. That's a message. And for a league already losing viewers by the millions, that message could not come at a worse time. Now let's talk about Stephanie White, the head coach of the Indiana Fever. She sets the tone in that locker room. She's the one accountable for what her assistants do, especially in public, especially on camera, especially right after a win. So when her assistant coaches are the ones shutting down a player's celebration, that's not some random one-off. That's culture. That's what's been built under her watch. And it might be time for those assistants to find something else to focus on, because holding down a winning player's arm should never be the job. Let's slow down and walk through exactly what went down here, because the details matter. Indiana beats Phoenix. Game's over. Wins on the board. Sophie Cunningham is out there soaking it in, pointing to the crowd, feeding off the fans who came to watch her team win. Then here come the Fever's assistant coaches. Not to join the moment, not to celebrate with her, to stop it. They physically pushed her arm down, and Cunningham pushed right back, told them to back off, told them to get out of her face. On camera, right after a win. So naturally, you've got to ask, why? Why would a coach step in and shut down a player celebrating with her own fans? What's the actual threat here? What's so dangerous about a player pointing to a crowd that's happy because their team just won? And that's the real question, because there's no basketball reason for this. No tactical reason. No safety reason. The only reason you'd physically stop a celebration like that is because something deeper is going on. Because somewhere in that organization, certain kinds of personality, certain kinds of joy, certain kinds of star energy are being treated like a problem instead of something worth celebrating. And here's where this connects straight to the ratings collapse we're about to break down. The WNBA's biggest issue right now isn't talent. The talent is incredible. The real issue is that the people in charge keep making choices that bury the exact things fans tune in for. Personality, celebration, star power, that connection between player and crowd. That's not some sideshow. That is the show. That's the product. So when coaches are physically pushing that product's arm down after a win, they're tearing apart the very thing they're supposed to be building up. Don't just take my word for it. Here's the moment Sophie Cunningham pushed back, caught live, with the entire sideline watching. Listen to what she just said, right there on her own sideline, to her own coaching staff. Get out of my face. Go away. After a win. That single sentence tells you everything about the culture inside the Indiana Fever right now. And Stephanie White owns every bit of it. Let's be clear about what that clip really shows. This isn't a player being dramatic. This isn't a player being difficult. This is a professional athlete who just won a basketball game, getting physically managed during her own moment of joy, finally reaching the end of her patience with an organization that can't stop controlling its own players. And because it happened on camera, in front of fans, on live broadcast, this isn't some quiet internal issue anymore. This is out in the open for everyone to see. Now let's shift to the second disaster, because this one is even bigger, and it connects straight back to Sophie Cunningham, straight to Caitlin Clark, and straight to what ESPN just did with its own Sunday night lineup. Here's the background. ESPN decided to pull Sunday Night Baseball and replace it with a new primetime block built around women's sports. The idea made sense on paper. Women's sports are growing. The WNBA is red hot. Caitlin Clark is a phenomenon. Put it in a big slot and let it take off. That was the plan. Now we have 3 weeks of actual numbers. And those numbers are, honestly, brutal. Across those 3 weeks, WNBA games in this new Sunday slot are averaging around 1 million viewers. People defending this move will point out that's up 53% from ESPN's regular WNBA average last year. They'll tell you the biggest game of the bunch, Indiana against Las Vegas, pulled in 1.6 million viewers, the top number of the whole series. All of that is technically accurate, but here's what they're hoping you won't notice. Sunday Night Baseball, the show this replaced, was pulling in 2.71 million viewers over that same 3-week stretch. Add in streaming through Peacock, and that number climbs to 3.1 million. 1 million versus 1 million. That's not a small gap. That's a canyon. Over 2 million viewers vanished. 2 million people who used to watch Sunday nights on ESPN and now don't. Every single week. And somehow, the people in charge want you to believe this is fine. That losing 2 million viewers a week isn't really a problem. Let that sink in for a second, because that take is one of the boldest pieces of spin you'll find anywhere in sports media today. They'll also bring up the money. And I want to tackle that argument directly, because it's the last card left to play. NBC pays roughly $200 million a year for baseball rights. The WNBA's entire media deal across 6 networks comes to about $280 million total. So technically, ESPN is spending less for this slot. Fine, let's accept that logic for a second. But that still doesn't explain where the viewers went. It still doesn't explain why the single best-performing broadcast of the entire series, Fever vs. Aces, only matched the viewership of a random Yankees-Royals afternoon game buried outside primetime. Think about that. The best WNBA game of the season, featuring Caitlin Clark, against one of the league's biggest franchises, with every ingredient needed for a monster number, drew the exact same audience as a weekday afternoon baseball game. And last year's most-watched Sunday Night Baseball broadcast, Dodgers vs. Yankees, pulled 2.73 million, more than 1.5 times the best number this new slot has managed to produce. That's reality. And the people responsible are trying to bury it under percentages and rights fee comparisons. But viewers don't care about rights fees. They care about what's actually on their screen. And 2 million of them have already made their decision. Here's the question nobody wants to say out loud, the part every press release conveniently skips. Watch this next clip, because it sums up the entire situation in one sentence. There it is. Caitlin Clark plays a massive role in all of this. That's the real admission. The thing everyone's been dancing around for weeks. Every time the Fever take the court, the numbers spike. The Fever Aces game hit the series high of 1.6 million, and Clark was on the floor for it. The overall average sits at 1 million. That difference between 1 million and 1.6 million isn't random. That gap has a name, and it's Caitlin Clark. Now here's why these two stories aren't separate at all. A lot of people are treating the Sophie Cunningham incident and the ratings collapse like two unrelated headlines. They're not. They're the exact same story, wearing two different masks. Same disease, different symptom. There's a culture running through women's basketball right now that keeps suppressing the very things that make people want to tune in. Sophie Cunningham celebrating with her fans after a win is exactly the kind of moment that builds a fan base. That's personality. That's joy. That's the human connection between an athlete and the crowd, the thing that turns a random viewer into someone who comes back every week. And her own coaching staff shut it down on camera right after a win. That's the same reflex that's been working against Caitlin Clark this whole time. The same instinct that's made the league's relationship with its biggest stars so complicated. The same instinct that sees real, organic star power and decides it needs to be dialed back instead of celebrated. And that instinct is costing this league 2 million viewers every single Sunday. So let's talk about what's likely coming next. First, expect the viewership numbers to keep tracking directly with whether Caitlin Clark is playing. When she's on the floor, the number pushes toward 1.6 million or higher. When she isn't, it drops back toward or below 1 million. That's not some bold prediction. It's already the pattern sitting right there in 3 weeks of data. And people will keep blaming matchups and scheduling, but by week 6, the pattern won't be deniable anymore. Second, expect Stephanie White to eventually address the Cunningham incident publicly, and expect the response to focus on professionalism and team culture, completely missing the actual issue. The issue isn't whether a celebration was appropriate. The issue is that coaching staff physically intervened in a player's moment with her own fans after a win, and that player told them to back off on camera. No press conference framing fixes that. And the longer it goes unaddressed, the worse it gets. Third, expect the conversation around fixing this new Sunday slot to land exactly where the data already points. You need Caitlin Clark in the featured game every single week, not occasionally, not when the schedule lines up. Without her, the average sits around 1 million in a slot that used to pull 2.71 million. With her, you get your best numbers. The math isn't complicated. What's complicated is actually acting on it. Fourth, this Cunningham moment isn't a one-off. It fits into a broader pattern that's already been talked about involving other players in that organization, a pattern some are calling fun police behavior, suppressing personality and celebration across the board. That pattern doesn't fix itself. It only changes when leadership names it directly and does something about it. Here's the bigger picture, and it matters. Women's basketball is at a genuine turning point. The talent is incredible. The stories are real. The competition is fierce. And Caitlin Clark has done something almost no individual athlete in any sport has managed in the last decade. She's created a measurable, undeniable 2 million viewer difference just by being on the floor. That's the kind of pull that comes around once in a generation. And the league has it right now, in uniform, ready to go. And the response from the old-school side of this sport has been to police celebrations, dial back personality, physically stop players mid-moment, and shove the most marketable player in the sport's history into a big slot, only to watch it average 1 million viewers because the surrounding culture won't stop working against the exact thing fans want to see. Sophie Cunningham points to the crowd after a win because she loves this game and she loves the people who show up for her. That's the product. That's what's actually being sold. That's what brought in 2 million extra viewers every time Caitlin Clark stepped on the court. Joy, personality, connection, the human side of sport that no amount of strategy can fake if the culture keeps stomping it out. The people running this league need to get out of their own way. The gap between 1 million and 2.71 million viewers isn't up for debate. That sideline footage isn't up for debate. 2 million viewers, gone, every single week. That's the cost of an old-school instinct to manage, control, and suppress the very thing that was working. Sophie Cunningham is still pointing to her crowd. She's not going to stop. The only real question left is whether the people around her finally step aside and let her. So here's what I want from you. Down in the comments, tell me straight. Do you think the Fever's coaching staff crossed a line by physically stopping Cunningham's celebration? Yes or no? And tell me this too. Do you think this Sunday slot hits 2 million average viewers if Caitlin Clark is featured every single week? Or is that gap simply too wide to close no matter who's playing? Drop your take below. I'm reading every single comment. If this got you thinking, if it made you frustrated, if it opened your eyes to something you hadn't noticed before, hit that like button right now and make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because this story is far from over.